So again, let me just quickly introduce myself. My name is Noha Nabil, and I'm an instructional designer in the education services team of NetWitness. And in today's session, we'll be talking about the CCM, or the Centralized Content Management. We will explore the concept behind it, what its components, and how you can use it efficiently in your environment. So to quickly go, here is our session agenda for today. We will talk about what is content in NetWitness, how you can manage your content, and what are the CCM components, or the centralized content management components, how you can enable it or disable it in your environment. I'll talk about an exciting feature in the CCM, which is the ESA Unified Deployments page. And we will just go over a quick highlight on what will be coming for NetWitness version 12.4 in terms of the CCM enhancements. Before we start our session, please ensure your mics are muted. And if you have any questions during the session, please drop them at the chat box so that I can answer them at the end of the session. Please don't forget to check our course catalog. And after this session, a PDF version of this presentation will be sent to all of you. So you can click on visit our course catalog and you can see what are our offerings. So before we start, let's set some expectations about what we will be covering in this session and what we will not be covering. So for example, we're going to describe what we mean by content in NetWitness and how you can manage it. However, we will not go into detailed information about each type of content and how you can create it, or how or where to use this type of content. And the second thing is we're going to be highlighting the CCM enhancements that are coming in the new version 12.4. However, we will not go into details about what are these enhancements. However, we can let you know where you can find these enhancements once they are ready for it. So let's get started with our session. The first thing we want to talk about is what do we mean by content in NetWitness? And content is anything that you add on your decoders or on your services in NetWitness that helps you manipulate your data or manipulate your data set on your environment. It helps you manipulate and create better content in your environment so you can see your environment in a better way and it can be managed in a better way. Here are some types of content that you can use. Maybe you can use application rules, network rules, the feeds, which essentially is a list, the Lua parsers, the log parsers, and you can also use the ESA rules. So these are the types of content that you can use to apply on your services, on your decoders, to get better data set and to manipulate the content on your services. There are two sources of content that you can find in NetWitness. The first source is the live content. And the live, which is summarized by Live CMS or Live Content Management System, is a repository of the latest internet security resources available in NetWitness. It gathers the advanced threat intelligence and content from global security community. So for example, there could be a list of IP addresses that are associated with some botnets and malware exploits that will be available for you to use. So essentially, the Live is a repository of ready-made rules or feeds or bundles that you can use for your environment that will help you track some threats that you might not be aware of, or it can help you find better content to better refine your environment by these ready-made rules. The second source of content is the custom content, and the custom content is any rule or feed or a parser that you specifically create for your environment. That's what we mean by custom content. Now, let's talk about how you can manage the content in your environment or in your NetWitness. If you are using the NetWitness prior to version 12.x, you're probably using the decentralized approach, which means that for you to manage the content of the live content specifically, so maybe I have the live CMS here, you must download this content up to the live UI, and then the admin, he deploys this type of content, or maybe this type of live content, on each decoder individually. And if you want to add a custom content, you would have to add it individually on each decoder. And so the live content is usually available in the UI under the live content page, and the custom content will only be available on the decoder that you create this custom content on. And in case, for example, you want to clone this content on other decoders, this is the only place that you can see this custom content. Of course, this method does not gather all your information or all your content in one place. And if you have a large environment that has a lot of decoders, this is definitely not efficient. You may be unable to track all the types of content. And if you made a change on one decoder, you must ensure that you had made this change on the other decoders, and so on. So here comes the solution for this, which is the centralized approach, which is available in NetWitness in any version of 12 and later. And what we mean by the centralized content management is this. Let's take an example. So now the live content is readily available in the content library. So you can browse all of it in the content library. And then in the same content library, and it's a repository of all of this content, you can also add all your custom content in this library. And what happens is that the admin goes around exploring this content library, chooses any content that he wants, whether custom or live, and then he adds them to a policy. And a policy is a container that contains all these types of content, and then deploy this policy on a group. And group is usually like several decoders that are grouped together, that, for example, you want to have the same content on, and you deploy this policy on this group. So, for example, let's say I have 5 log decoders that I want them to have the same type of content. And even if I make any changes to this type of content, I want them to immediately inherit this new change. So what I do is I add all this content in a policy and then deploy it on this group where I add these 3 or 5 decoders that I want. So the good thing about the CCM, or the centralized content management, is the first, that you have a content library, which means that you have a repository that you can see all the live content and all the custom content in one place. And if you make any edits in these contents, you will be able to track these edits under one place. You can also onboard any new decoder that you have easily by simply adding this decoder to a group, and it will automatically inherit all the content that is available in this policy. So this is where CCM is really useful and helpful for your environment.